31,000 years ago, deep in a rainforest cave on the island of Borneo, someone picked up a razor-sharp piece of stone and cut off a child's leg, cleanly, below the knee. The child lived, not for a day, not for a week, for another 6 to 9 years. The story of how ancient humans treated wounds isn't the story you were told in school. It isn't dirty rags and hoping for the best. It isn't shamans waving smoke at infections they didn't understand. And it definitely isn't the idea that real medicine only started with the Greeks. The truth goes back further, and it's stranger than almost anyone realizes. Because in some ways, the guy scraping a hole in your great-great-grandfather's skull with a sharpened flint had a better survival rate than a Civil War surgeon holding a steel scalpel. Tonight, when you rip open a Band-Aid without thinking about it, you're using knowledge people were dying to figure out, for hundreds of thousands of years. This video traces the real history of prehistoric first aid, from a Neanderthal skeleton in Iraq who couldn't have survived alone, to the world's oldest surgery in a Borneo cave, to a frozen man in the Alps carrying a fungus pharmacy, to Neolithic patients who lived through brain surgery with stone tools, to the ancient Egyptian scribes who wrote down the first evidence-based trauma manual in human history. By the end, you'll never look at a bottle of antiseptic the same way again. 50,000 years ago, in a limestone cave in the Zagros Mountains of northern Iraq, a Neanderthal man died. Archaeologists call him Shanidar I. When Ralph Selecki excavated him in the late 1950s, the skeleton told a shocking story. This man had a crushed left eye socket, probably blind on that side. His right arm was withered and had been amputated or lost above the elbow. He had healed fractures on his skull, his ribs, and his foot. He was somewhere between 40 and 50 years old when he died in a rockfall. Here's the part that changed how we think about early humans. None of those injuries killed him. They healed. Which means somebody, probably several somebodies, kept him alive for years. They fed him. They moved him. And based on evidence pulled from Neanderthal dental plaque and studied by archaeologist Karen Hardy's team, they knew which plants to use. Yarrow, chamomile, both packed with compounds we now classify as antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory. A separate grave at the same cave, Shanidar IV, was buried surrounded by pollen from at least 7 medicinal plant species. A discovery so striking it earned the site the nickname the Flower Burial. Neanderthals weren't just surviving. They were nursing each other. That is the actual beginning of first aid. Fast forward to 31,000 years ago. A team of Australian and Indonesian archaeologists, led by Tim Maloney of Griffith University, was digging in a cave called Liang Tebo in Indonesian Borneo. They uncovered a burial, and the skeleton was missing its lower left leg. At first they assumed accident, animal bite, violence. But the bone told a different story. Published in the journal Nature in September 2022, the analysis showed a clean, healed stump. The exact pattern modern surgeons see after a successful amputation. The patient was a child at the time of the operation, and they lived another 6 to 9 years. Think about what that requires. Somebody in a Stone Age rainforest, a place where a paper cut can go septic in 48 hours, had to know how to cut through skin, muscle, and bone without hitting a major artery. They had to control the bleeding, they had to prevent infection in one of the most infection-prone climates on Earth, and they had to keep this kid alive through weeks of recovery, feeding them, cleaning the wound, and carrying them through mountainous terrain. Borneo is one of the most plant-rich places on the planet. Co-author India Dilks Hall pointed out that the local flora includes powerful natural antiseptics. The processed fruit of the Pangium edgel tree, for example, is still used medicinally in the region today. This wasn't luck. This was a pharmacy in a jungle. And somebody knew how to use it. September 1991. 2 German hikers stumbled across a body sticking out of a melting glacier in the Ötztal Alps on the Italian-Austrian border. They thought it was a modern climber. It was a man who died 5,300 years ago. He is now the most studied ancient human on Earth. Ötzi was in bad shape. He had worn down joints, hardened arteries, a stomach infection, intestinal parasites, and eventually took an arrow to the back that killed him. But before that, he was being treated. Tied to the leather straps of his gear, researchers found chunks of Fomitopsis betulina, the birch polypore fungus. Modern pharmacological studies published in journals like Applied Microbiology and Biotechnology confirm this fungus contains antibacterial, antiparasitic, and anti-inflammatory compounds. Ötzi wasn't carrying it as a snack, he was carrying it as medicine. He also had bracken fern in his stomach, a known treatment for tapeworm, and traces of bog moss that appear to have been used as bandaging. And then there are the tattoos. 61 of them. Not decorative. Almost all of them cluster on his lower back, knees, wrists, and ankles. Exactly the joints his skeleton shows were arthritic. A 2018 study in the International Journal of Paleopathology argued these are therapeutic marks, potentially a form of acupuncture-like treatment, 2,000 years before the earliest written record of acupuncture in China. Ötzi wasn't a lone survivor, he was a patient in a healthcare system. Around 5000 BCE, in a place we now call Ensisheim in eastern France, a 50-year-old man had 2 holes cut into his skull. One was smaller and completely healed, the other was massive, nearly 4 inches across, and partially healed. He lived through the first surgery, he almost lived through the second. This is trepanation, and it is the oldest documented form of open surgery in the world. Archaeologists have now recovered over 1,500 trepan skulls from every inhabited continent. Around 5 to 10% of all Neolithic skulls found at some European sites show evidence of the procedure. Here's what should stop you in your tracks. According to research summarized by neuroscientist Charles Gross and later work by anthropologist John Verano of Tulane University, who has studied more than 800 trepanned skulls from Peru alone. Survival rates in the Inca Empire reached 75 to 83%. In late Iron Age Switzerland, one 2015 study calculated a 78% survival rate. For comparison, American Civil War surgeons performing the same operation with steel tools in a hospital 400 years later killed roughly half of their cranial surgery patients. Ancient people, working with obsidian and flint, were better at this than 19th century doctors. So how? How does a Stone Age surgeon beat a Victorian one? The answer is uncomfortable. It's clean tools, small teams, and no hospital. 19th century surgeons went from cadaver to patient without washing their hands. They operated in wards packed with sick people. They shared instruments across dozens of bodies. What killed people back then wasn't the surgery. It was the setting. Prehistoric healers didn't have germ theory, but they had something almost as useful. They lived in small, low-density groups, they used freshly made stone tools that had never touched another wound, and they worked in the open air. Ochre, which many of them applied to injuries, has documented antiseptic properties. The plants they picked, yarrow, chamomile, birch polypore, honey, happened to be some of the most effective natural antimicrobials on Earth. They weren't guessing. They were watching what worked, remembering it, and passing it down. For tens of thousands of years. By around 1600 BCE, this accumulated knowledge got written down. The Edwin Smith Papyrus, now held at the New York Academy of Medicine, is the world's oldest known surgical treatise on trauma. It describes 48 cases, head wounds, broken ribs, spinal injuries, nasal fractures. And it reads, disturbingly, like a modern textbook. Each case has a title, an examination, a diagnosis, and a treatment. Wounds are closed with sutures. Fractures are splinted. Bleeding is stopped with raw meat, which is now known to trigger clotting. An infection is prevented with honey, mentioned across Egyptian medical papyri roughly 500 times in around 900 different remedies. Modern research has since confirmed that honey has genuine antibacterial properties, thanks to its low water content, low pH, and hydrogen peroxide release. The Egyptian scribe who wrote, "Put honey on this wound," was giving advice that would be considered evidence-based today. Out of 48 cases in the papyrus, only one involves magic. The other 47 are pure clinical medicine. Tonight, when you clean a cut, dab on some antibiotic ointment, and slap a bandage over it, you are repeating a routine that human beings have been perfecting for at least 50,000 years. And probably a lot longer. Every stinging drop of hydrogen peroxide is the great-great descendant of a Neanderthal chewing yarrow in a cave in Iraq. Every antibiotic salve traces back to a chunk of birch fungus tied to a frozen man's belt. Every stitch is the echo of an Egyptian scribe carefully writing down what he'd seen work. The oldest human instinct isn't violence. It isn't even hunger. It's the instinct to reach for someone who's hurt and try to make it stop. That instinct is older than agriculture, older than writing, older maybe than our species. And it's still in your hands every time you help someone bleed a little less.